greetings. Welcome in. It's Better's Last Stand, show number 103, coming to you from the Pine Room Watchdog Studio, downtown Wheeling here on a nice early fall day today. A little chill in the air, only in about the high 60s, so we'll definitely take that. I could use some of the cloud cover from Monday, but nonetheless, a good start towards fall, and this is the time of year that you live for. You got pro baseball playoffs going on right now. You got Champions League soccer going on right now. WNBA playoffs, which no one cares about anymore, including me. But then you got a huge week of football. We got, I believe I wrote down today, 55 straight days of football beginning this week. So yippee. Everybody should be really excited. Thank you for joining us today. Our middle portion of the program, or actually our second and only second segment, because we're not doing three with Sam out of action again. So the racing we put in the first segment, and then the football is the second segment. That will be on the Watchdog. So you can check us out on Friday if you want to rehear what you hear on the podcast or on the YouTube page, whatever you prefer. Pine Room Studios is the place to get it, and watchdognetwork.com is the place for you to be for all your high school football action tonight. Wheeling Park, Wheeling Central, and John Marshall all back in action coming up on Friday night here. All three of those in town at home. So we'll have all those games on the watchdognetwork.com. All right, let's get down to business here. Better's Last Stand, show 103. We were up over 10 units last week. That wasn't counting the President's Cup golf, which I kind of usually put as a separate entity most of the time because there's not a lot of people that play golf, and then betting futures is a little bit different than just your regular night in, night out action. So I separate the two. We were up about 1060 on our units, so just about 10.5 units on the week. Not a great week by any means. Not terrible, but not great at all. EPL, we were 3-5-2. Champions League soccer, 3-1 with a couple pending right now. We got some action going on here this afternoon as we tape as Champions League match day 2, part number 3 or 4 or 5, I think. But nonetheless, this new format has been very entertaining so far for me. And we'll talk about that in the second portion of the program as we talk all things football, from the round footballs to the weird-looking footballs. Nonetheless, we were 3-1 in Champions League, and I got a few pending bets going so far so good. AFL 5-4, but we cashed our big one. The Brisbane Lions take home the grand final in grand fashion. They were outstanding. They destroyed the Sydney Swans 120-60. It was an absolute beating. And I got to say, I didn't expect them to win like that. But the Lions, much the best, superior performances. We hit several of our goal scorer props there and at plus prices. And I think if you played those bets, you got to be pretty happy. Plus that 7-1 coming back on the Lions. So we'll always take that, no doubt. About 3-2 in the CFL. College football, we were 9-7-2. Our best bet will depend on the number you may have gotten. So I bet this thing early. Louisville was our best bet. They were catching 6.5. I gave it out on the show. I played it at 6.5, but I also played it at 7 and 7.5. So I had a loss, a tie, and a push. So depending on what you got it, I'm counting it as a loss because when I gave it out on here, it was 6.5, and it didn't happen. Louisville, tons of chances to win that game outright. Just catastrophic mistakes. Notre Dame, very iffy. They have what's looking to be a little tougher schedule, so we'll give them credit for that. Their schedule looks like it may be a little bit more difficult, with the two top service academies both looking pretty solid so far, and we'll talk about that in the college football portion of the program. Nonetheless, we're now 1-4 in our college football best bets. Yikes. Still doing all right, though, overall in college football. Just can't get the best bets to come through for us. NFL 5-9. Terrible week in the NFL. I had a few outright winners that went our way. Carolina didn't get the job done. Again, a team that had chances. They had opportunities to stop Cincinnati before the end of the half. Coming out at halftime, couldn't get the job done. Cincinnati still not very good. Carolina, better. Still got a shot at the win total bet over. We'll recap those in the second segment of the program. Again, the AFL outright 7-1 with the Brisbane Lions. We'll cash that one every time as they take home the grand final. NASCAR, we had 3 top 10s. Byron, Bowman, and Elliott, the Hendrick cars. Imagine that, all strong at Kansas once more. And I'm disappointed in myself because I ended up betting Ross Chastain on just a hunch on Sunday with his past performances. I didn't give that out on the show last week, and I'm pissed off about it because If I would have given that one out, it'd been a nice 28-1 winner there, but I did not take it. I did not give it out on the program, so we're definitely not going to count that as a winner. We're going to talk some NHL today, so excited about that. That's going to come up in the tail end of this front end portion. Give you some future bets that I'm looking at placing, and we get the NHL started up here next week. So very, very excited about that. It's nice to have another sport that I can actually tolerate coming back. President's Cup, Xander and Matsuyama, top point getters for their respective countries or municipalities, representation groups, whatever. Because Matsuyama really didn't represent Japan. He represented the international team. But nonetheless, depending on what your tiebreaker rules are, if you have dead heat rules or if you pay them out straight outright, you got to look for those books where if you have a tie, they pay it out in the full price. That's what you want to find. And we got a couple home with that. But those 2-6 overall internationals gave a great run there on the day number 2 to get back to even, and then just kind of faltered late on. Wild card series underway in baseball. We have a couple of those going on right now. The Astros, the Orioles, who I'm wearing the gear right now. The Orioles face elimination today. The Astros face elimination today. The Brewers face elimination today. And the Braves face elimination today. Will any of them bounce back by the time we're back here on Bettor's Last Stand next week? I'm not sure. Sure hopeful, but don't know how that's going to shake out. I still think the love for the Padres is starting to concern me, though, as people are starting to jump all over this team, and it worries me quite a bit. So they're about 9. You can find them between 7.5 and 9-1 to win it all. Kansas City 14. Nobody really makes a whole lot of sense to me right now. I want to see what these games do today, but I'm still on the Padres, of course. I'm on the Astros, of course. I wish I could be on the Orioles, but I just can't trust them. Phillies may be pretty safe in the National League right now. Mets are playing hot, but I just don't believe in that pitching staff at all or their lineup, really. But we'll see. A little bit early on in the playoffs. We gave out the futures weeks ago, and we're just going to ride with what we have for the time being. Again, President's Cup, USA wins at 18.5 to 11.5, so pretty easy there. We didn't nail that by any means on our score predictions, but hey, you take a shot. You want to go against a giant favorite. That's how you get it done. That was even outside of the scope of the parameters that I expected for the USA to win, but the landslide came on Sunday, and once they realized they couldn't make up the ground, it was over. WNBA playoffs, hard to watch right now. I'll be honest with you, and I've been a guy that watched this for a long, long time, way before Caitlin Clark, and it has its ups and downs. Sometimes the league's bad, sometimes it was okay. Overall, I've enjoyed the league over the years, but now since they just have this ridiculous hatred for Caitlin Clark just across all the platforms and the people, and it's tough for me to turn on. But I still bet it, I still follow it, and that will continue no matter what. But you got some series now going back to the second city here as the Lynx and the Sun and the Liberty and the Aces are in the semifinals. Right now, the Lynx minus 125. Connecticut Sun plus 105 in that series, which begins on Friday night, 7:30 p.m. New York leading that 2-0. Actually, no, I'm sorry, that's the Sun. The Lynx and the Sun are tied at 1-1, and the Lynx or the Liberty and the Aces are the ones. The Liberty lead that series 2-0. So. I don't know where the value is in this. I want to say maybe the Sun a little bit at plus 105. 3 of the last 5 in this matchup have went under the total. The last 2 have went under. I think this is a nip and tuck series. I would bet this game to go 5. I would bet this series to go 5 games. I think it will end up going back to Minnesota for a 5th game. And I think whoever you like there, maybe betting it to straight result, the 5th game winner, whoever you like, Lynx or Sun. Whoever you're picking in the 5th game, do it. You get a good plus price there. That's how I would play that one. And then the Liberty and the Aces. The Liberty, a huge $9 favorite right now. The Aces have issues. Kelsey Plum and Becky Hammond are pissed at each other. That's the coach, Becky Hammond, the player, Kelsey Plum, who's I like Kelsey Plum, but she's a little bit messed up, I think, in the head. Nonetheless, issues there with the Aces. So are they dead? Are they buried? We thought that a few times before. So far, they've come back to life each one of those times. The Aces a 2.5-point favorite on Friday night, 166.5 in that matchup at 9:30 tip. I got to tell you, in my opinion, it makes the most sense to bet the Liberty. If you like the Liberty to sweep this series, you go out and you bet them to win in 3 at plus 120, which is basically going to be the same as your money line on the game. But if you think that the Aces will win one game, which I do, I think they'll win this game. I think they'll absolutely win this game. They'll come maxed out, ready to go. And then if the Liberty are going to be able to take them out in game 4, then so be it. So you can get the Liberty at plus 260 to win the series in 4 games instead of the minus $9 that you'd be laying if you just bet them straight outcome. They win the series no matter what. So I recommend, if you like the Liberty in the series, you think that the Aces will win one game, play the Liberty to win in 4 or 5 games. You can get plus 260 on them to win in game 4 and plus $5 for them to win in game 5. So I like those 2 options for the Liberty. But I wouldn't scare people off of the Aces here. It wouldn't surprise you if they come back and won this. It's a little unlikely to win 3 in a row against the Liberty. Would be tough, but I wouldn't completely put it past them. But I recommend playing the Liberty. If you like the Liberty, assume that the Aces will win one game here, and then play the Liberty to win in 4 or 5 games, and you get a nice plus price there. Last 2 in this matchup have went over, and the Liberty have won the last 5 in the rivalry. Moving along to NASCAR here on a playoff Talladega Sunday coming up here in the Yellowwood 500 from Talladega. Should be a very, very good one. But before we actually do that, let me just remind you that no F1 this week, and they will be in the Circuit of Americas in Texas here in the United States next week on the 20th. So we look forward to that one as the United States Grand Prix comes to Texas. Looking forward to that very, very much. Ross Chastain wins last week at Kansas 28-1. Playoff week number 5 is upon us. It's the Yellowwood 500, as I said, from Talladega Super Speedway. Recapping the race the other day at Kansas, Chastain leads the final 52. Oh, it might not have been the final 52. It's like the final 40-some laps. A couple cautions, but he had a good car. And William Byron was tracking him down and was driving the tires off of his car, but he just couldn't get enough to get past Chastain. So Chastain gets the job done there for his team, and we move on to Talladega now. So exciting. Talladega, always a place that you can find value, and that's the good thing about super speedway racing and playing outrights. It's very similar to golf because you're going to get very, very good prices on very, very, very even cars. And the favorites just, now they'll win time and again, but the favorites don't dominate these tracks like they're Talladega like they do other tracks. So you got to remember that when you're playing this. I'll never recommend anybody to make a bet on a favorite in this race. And Joey Logano right now and Ryan Blaney, 2 of the favorites for this race, they're only around 9-1. And while Ryan Blaney's been great at Talladega, Joey Logano's won 3 times. I think Blaney's won 3 times. He won this race back in 23, I think the fall race last year. So Blaney can definitely win this race, and there's no question about it. He's a great racer. I like the guy so much. But I can't recommend that from a betting side of things. You're getting too many other valuable players, so to speak, here at better prices. So some of the guys that I like to focus on when we're talking about super speedways, Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta to some extent, guys at big prices, guys who normally would be about 200-1 to win these races, they're cut down to 50, but 50 I'll take. 50 is very, very good for NASCAR, and we'll be happy to cash a ticket like that. So Ricky Stenhouse is the guy that comes to mind. He was 4th in the spring race. He's 35-1. Ryan Preece, another guy. He's had multiple opportunities to win at Talladega and Daytona. He's just had bad luck each time. He's going to win one of these at some point. 50-1 for Ryan Preece. Todd Gilliland arguably had the best car in the spring race here at Talladega. He was up front a bunch. He was drafting with the top pack, and his race rating was through the freaking roof. So Gilliland ended up finishing 8th. So he's a guy at 45-1. I don't see why he wouldn't have the same setup. He's going to be very, very good here. So Todd Gilliland at a good price. Justin Haley was won on the super speedways before. Very, very good super speedway racer. He was 7th in this race last year at 48-1. You can find these between 40 and 60-1. I found a lot of these guys. Another one, Anthony Alfredo. Now, he's not a regular circuit driver, but he's been very, very good in super speedways. A little bit of a risk with his equipment. 6th in the spring race. He's 85-1. And then Corey LaJoie, he has been a regular top 10 car in these super speedway races, Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta. So Corey LaJoie at 55-1. He was 5th here last year. So those guys I would definitely have on your betting tickets, even if you're not using a whole unit on them. Use a quarter unit. If you're betting $100, bet 25 on them. Or if you're betting $50, bet 10. Just make it a fifth of what you normally would have. These guys, even $5. I mean, you can get $5 on an 80-1 shot. It's going to be a nice little payout. At least give you some more money to bet with. So that's how I usually start out in Talladega. And then I start to zero in on guys with a little bit lesser prices. And I settled on Chase Elliott. Now, Brad Keselowski's been dominant here. He's won 6 times now, but not recently. With his new car, it's just so much more even. So Keselowski, Blaney, Logano would be 3 guys that I would say those guys have the best chance of winning. Now, will they? There's so many things that can go wrong here. I can't recommend them at the prices. Keselowski at 9, Logano at 9, Blaney at 9, just too low. Chase Elliott at 14, I can get a little bit interested in. He's ran well here. He's won twice. So he'll be my top play. And then Chase Briscoe, a little bit mid-pack guy, has had some great finishes here. He's knocking on the door to win one of these super speedway races. So we're going to go with Briscoe at 36-1 to be my second choice here. And then, as I mentioned, the 6 guys that I gave out as long shots, that would be Stenhouse, Priest, Gilliland, Haley, Alfredo, and LaJoie. So should be a really, really good Yellowwood 500 from Talladega. So we look forward to that on Sunday afternoon. This will get us a break from the dastardly football known as the NFL, where you can't seem to figure anything out. Oh, Angel Di Maria with a penalty for Benfica. It's good. Angel Di Maria, new documentary on Netflix, too, if you're interested in soccer. Always been a guy that I've liked a lot. I think he's one of the most unsung heroes of all the teams that he's played on, especially the Argentina World Cup winning team. Di Maria played such huge minutes for them, even at his age. And regardless if you have Messi or not, you got to have a number 2. And Angel Di Maria has been one of the best number 2 options on club and country for his entire life. So he continues to do it. This time for Benfica, Portuguese league, and they now have a 2-0 lead on Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. All right, let's dive into some hockey here. Wow, yeah, I haven't said that in a while. It's good to have hockey back. We're excited about that. The Nailers will be facing off here in a few weeks. Penguins preseason. I watched the game last night. So we got a lot going on here with the NHL. So some of the teams that I'm interested in from a futures perspective, and I'm not 100% certain that I'm going to bet them to win the Cup yet, but some of the teams that I think are contenders. In the Western Conference, I think the Nashville Predators have had a great offseason. They add Steven Stamkos. They add a few other depth pieces. They're around 18 or 20-1 to win the Stanley Cup. I really like them. They were a team we were hot on the end of last year. I think they narrowly made the playoffs, but then ended up getting beat. But they're a team that I think really, really comes back to being a dominant team here this season. They got a good goalie and some really good top-end scoring. Philip Forsberg, outstanding. Roman Josi, who we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes, about one of the season-long bets that I like. They got good leadership. And I like Nashville to have a very, very strong season. Also in the Western Conference, I would expect Colorado. They're a little bit low of a price for me to play right now at around 10 or 12-1. The Avalanche should be good. They should be a lot more healthy this year. And you would expect them to be right there in the mix in the Western Conference. They had a lot of things go wrong for them in the last couple of seasons, actually. And I think that once the Avalanche realized that they probably weren't going to have enough horses to win it all last year, I think they kind of actually geared it down almost to a point where I don't want to say they quit, but they almost were like, okay, we'll just get our way through this and we'll get on to next year. And, they may get Landeskog back. He's been out for over a year now, and that would be a massive, massive lift for them. He was the captain for the team one time, and a huge power forward. And if they could get him back, they already got Rantanen and obviously McKinnon. So they're going to be fierce contenders in the Western Conference. Also in the West, the Vegas Golden Knights. I expect Vegas to be very, very strong. They just couldn't put it together last year. It was weird season. Just had a lot of ups and downs. So Vegas at 16-1, I think, very, very strong there. Tampa Bay, I think, in the East takes a bump up. They add Jake Gensel. They get a little bit younger. They get Ryan McDonough back to help their back line, who I'm not really a fan of, but he has paired well in the Tampa system, so he'll probably help them quite a bit. Panthers might be a little bit worn out this year, so probably be taking some shots for them to maybe be under. Bruins have an issue with Swayman. Don't know about him right now. And then there's some up-and-coming teams in the East. Obviously, the Rangers are going to be right there. They got a good goalie and a solid power play. So I think they'll be contenders, but the price just not worth getting behind. The Devils, I'm curious about. Can they get the goaltending that they need? 12-1, a little too short for me. But in the East, a couple of up-and-coming teams. I thought Detroit at 46-1 was worth just a sniff. You gotta kind of see how things go. And then the Sabres at 50-1, just a team that has a good coach now. Lindy Ruff is back. They got a good roster. I think I like what they got going right now. If they get goaltending, they're going to be tough. And then back to the West, St. Louis Blues, which we'll talk about them in a few minutes. Team I was high on late last year. I like what they've done. They brought in two really good depth pieces that they took off the Edmonton Oilers, restricted free agents that they were able to lure away, which is huge. And they built their club up pretty nice. So I think the Blues will be definite contenders in the Central Division and the Western Conference. All right, let's go to some of the divisions here. So I don't have a division pick for every single division, but I'll at least give you kind of what I'm thinking. Actually, let's do conference first. Conference-wise, same teams that I just talked about. No big surprises there. There's not anybody with a conference price that I am just jumping, off the wall about. But the same teams that I mentioned, meaning Nashville, St. Louis, Tampa, Buffalo, Colorado, and Vegas. Probably the teams that in Detroit that I would be interested in taking a peek to win these conference, each the West and the Eastern Conference. I just nothing sticks out as a team that I truly love at this point. But division-wise, I thought Pacific Division, Vegas and Vancouver, to me, I think they supplant Edmonton here. I think one of those two takes it down. You got Vegas about $3.90, almost $4, and Vancouver a touch over $4. Both these teams I expect to be very good. Vancouver, a team that I would have named for a potential Stanley Cup, but I didn't love their number of like 16 to 18-1. If you can get 20, then Vancouver interests me quite a bit. They had some injuries in the playoffs last year. I think they're a little bit better than what their results showed at the end of the season. So Vegas and Vancouver in the Pacific. And then a dark horse team that we'll get to here, the Anaheim Ducks. I think this team, they have some very good young talent. I was on them last year. They did not get the job done for me last year, but we're going to go right back with them, and I'll talk about them here momentarily. In the Central Division, I talked about Nashville. They're my pick to win that division. I think they can even beat out Colorado. So Colorado at plus 230. Nashville is the third choice behind Dallas at plus $4. Dallas at plus 225. Not huge on Dallas. I never really liked Dallas that much. I don't know, something about them. It's just the way they blew that series against Colorado against Edmonton last year. I just don't trust Dallas. I don't know why. I like some of their players, and I just don't know if they have the grit to be able to win. So a little bit dubious of Dallas. Colorado, I think, will be very solid. So it's tough to say that Nashville's going to be able to knock Colorado out of there. But at 4-1, I think it's worth a shot. St. Louis, another team that I think can make the playoffs at plus 205 in that division. 22-1 to win it. I'm not sure they're good enough to win the division, but the playoffs definitely in the cards for them. The Metro Division, the Penguins to make the playoffs, plus 120 maybe. They're going to be right there. They're going to be right there in 8, 9, 10. They're just going to have to fight out. It's going to be similar to last year. If they can get the power play going, maybe it puts them over the top. Going to be tough. Rangers are going to be hard to beat, plus 270. Carolina, plus 250. No real play for me in the Metro, but I can make a case for a lot of these teams to be playoff teams outside of Columbus and Philadelphia. Atlantic Division, Detroit and Buffalo, they would be two teams I would take a look at, but Tampa's my pick to win the division, plus 495. We cannot forget they still have the top goalie in the league, and they've revamped their roster a little, reshuffled, got a little fresher, a little bit of hunger now as they're a couple years removed from being the dominant team that they were. So we were on them a little bit last year. They made a strong run to get into the playoffs, died off in the playoffs. I'll be back on the Lightning this year to win the Atlantic Division at plus 495. Sabres at 15-1, and the Red Wings at around 13-1. Both those teams, to me, are playoff contenders. Buffalo at plus 155, and Detroit at plus 180. So I think there's some definite value on those teams. Team point totals. These are some of the teams that I like as far as to go over their point total. I like the Anaheim Ducks, as I said, over 70.5 points. They had 58 last year. They're much, much better. They got another year under their belt for the young guys. And everybody says they don't have a goalie, but John Gibson is a pretty good goalie. And I think that if he continues to get better play in front of him, he's going to be okay. Like, John Gibson, to me, is a very, very serviceable goaltender. He is not a guy who's going to shut out teams, but he's going to keep it to 2 or 3 goals every night. He's very, very stable. So I like Anaheim. I think they make the playoffs, and I think they go over 70.5 points. The next team will be the Buffalo Sabres. We talked about them a little bit already. I like them over 87.5 points. They had 91 last year and didn't even make the playoffs. So at plus 155 to make it, I like that as well. But again, the Sabres over 87.5 points. They've been playing their top guys throughout the entire preseason to get the chemistry going so they can actually be shot out of a cannon here next week and be ready to play right away. So I expect the Buffalo Sabres to be very, very, very strong this year. The Penguins, I'm going to take a shot here. If you're a local person who just likes the Penguins, I do think that them getting over 90.5 points has a shot because they had 91 last year, and I would expect them to be a little bit better depth-wise. They have a couple of new pieces that are coming along. You got Drew O'Connor, who's been better. I'm very big on Anthony Beauvillier to fill out the roster, but he can play the top or the bottom six, gives you a little bit more creativity. So I'm all right with the Penguins. I'm not saying they're going to be good. I'm not telling you they're going to win the Stanley Cup because they're just not, but they can get 91 points, and I feel like that's very possible. If their power play can perform a little bit better than last year, they absolutely will. So we'll go with the Penguins over 90.5 points. They're plus 120 to make the playoffs. That's tough. It's going to come right down to it. You'll be getting that number almost the entire season, especially if they start out just, splitting out. Unless they start out really, really good or really, really bad, you're not going to get anything different than that most of the year. The Flyers, under 86.5 points. This team had 75 points last year. They've not gotten much better. They have a goalie that's facing all kinds of criminal charges for an issue from years ago when he was representing the United States. So there's a lot there. Carter Hart's his name. You can look up the story. It's quite crazy. Flyers under 86.5. I think that's a very good one. I think they missed the playoffs. 75 points. I think they'll have between 75 and 80 this year, but they're not getting over 86.5. The Predators over 99.5. Like I said, they're my pick to perhaps knock off Colorado and Dallas in the Central Division. So we go over 99.5 for them. They had 91 last year, got into the playoffs late. They're going to be a lot better, just a lot smoother. They've got depth now. Their goalie should be healthy, Soros. So they should be right there in the Central Division. The Blues, 86.5 points. This is my NHL best bet of the year for my future bets. It'll be the St. Louis Blues over 86.5 points. The Blues had 81 points last year. So the Blues get a year older. They get some of these young guys continue to come along for them. I'm excited about watching this team play. They were kind of exciting. They just couldn't score that much last year. So I think defensively they're good. Structurally they're good. They got everything that you need. They get some better goal scoring this year. Some guys a year older put the pucks in the net, get some better bounces. They will go over the 86.5. They had 81 last year and really didn't play a great season until or play great at all until very, very late in the season. So Blues over 86.5. Oilers under 108.5. We're going to go under 108.5 for the Oilers. And it's just a kind of a ebb and flow type thing. You're just not going to see teams producing 109 points again after starting out the way that they did. This team lost a lot in the offseason. They got older. And I just don't feel that the Oilers are what people think they are. They're just not as good. They had a very strong year last year. I think they really, really take a downturn. Not saying they don't get 100 points. Not saying they're not in contention to win the Pacific, but 108.5 will go under that. Detroit over 90.5. They had 80 last year. They had a lot of tough losses, overtime losses, things like that. I think they cleaned it up. They got some good veterans. They got some good young players, and we'll go Detroit over 90.5. Florida under 102.5. This is a product of just tiredness. It's happened to Tampa. It's going to happen to Florida. You get to the finals 2 years in a row, and you just hit a wall. And I'm not saying they're not a playoff team. They definitely will be, but they're going to have ruts where their legs are going to go on them. They've just played too much hockey not to. So we go under 102.5 for the Florida Panthers. All right, let's get to some player props for the season. Tage Thompson for the Buffalo Sabres. This guy can really, really play. Young guy. I think it's his second 4 years, third year overall. He scored 29 goals last year. I like him to go over 36.5 goals. I think he gets to be a 40-goal scorer this year, and Buffalo would depend on him. He will be a key part of the power play, and their scoring up and down their lineup. He is going to be the top guy on their first line. So Tage Thompson over 36.5 goals this year. Jordan Cairo, he is for the Blues. He's a young guy. He scored 30 last year. We're going to go for him to score over 32.5. And then Yegor Sharangovich for the Calgary Flames. He had 25 goals, he had 31 goals last year. We're going to go over 25.5 for Sharangovich. That's Yegor Sharangovich for the Calgary Flames. Over 25.5 goals. Dylan Larkin for the Detroit Red Wings. He had 32 goals last year, but looking back in Dylan Larkin is a very good all-around centerman. He can skate, he can create plays, he can score a little bit, but I would never call him an all-out sniper. So I think with Detroit getting a little bit better this year and him having to not pull all the weight, I think under 33.5 goals for him makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying he's not going to have a great year. He may still have 100. He's going to have probably close to 100 points or more than 100 points. But I think his goal scoring goes down a little bit just because he's got other guys that can score. So I think he probably scores around 30 instead of 33. He had 32 last year, which I think was either the second most that he's ever scored or the first most that he scored. The most that he scored. So we're going to Larkin under 33.5. Nick Suzuki, Montreal, they're going to be really, really bad. Suzuki tends to get beat up sometimes. He had 33 goals last year. His total this year, 31.5. I like Nick Suzuki under 31.5. They're going to need him to score these goals, but I'm not sure he can be able to get to 33.5. This is a team that's in a total rebuild, and they really, really struggle for chemistry. So we'll go Suzuki under 31.5. So again, that's Suzuki under 31.5, Larkin under 33.5, Sharangovich over 25.5, Cairo over 32.5, and Tage Thompson over 36.5. And one that I couldn't find anywhere, but I think it's worth a peek if you can find it somewhere. Maybe if you're in Pennsylvania, you might be able to find it in a book there. But Drew O'Connor from the Penguins, he scored, I think, 15 or 16 last year. This he's coming along pretty good. He keeps getting better, and he's probably going to play in the top 6 role here for the Penguins, at least some. He may kill penalties. He's going to have a lot of ice time. So I think if you found him at like 16 or 17 goals, I think he's got a legit shot to get to 20. So maybe a peek at him if you're looking for another Penguin bet. Drew O'Connor over his goal total. I don't know what it is. I wouldn't play it if it's above 20. But I think if you get into high teens, I think he's got a really good shot of getting to that. Some point totals for players. Let's go to Roman Josi, the captain. It's the captain of the Nashville Predators. I don't know why I said capital, but he is the capital. El Capitan. He is the captain of the Nashville Predators. 82.5 is his point total. He had 85 last year, and he didn't have a great season for his standards. This guy's produced massive amounts of points in the past. Norris Trophy winner, exceptional player, leader of the back line for them, be the key to the power play. We'll go over 82.5 for Roman Josi. They get Stamkos on that power play now. There's going to be a lot of goals to be had in Nashville. That'll be something that we'll be focusing in on in the coming weeks, is starting to find some of these power play units that are putting goals in, and you start playing the power play points over in a single game, and they can rack up pretty good because you can have one goal and you can win 3 bets. So that is something I like to play. You can get a lot of value on those. Miro Heiskanen, another great backline player for the Dallas Stars. 59.5 is his point total. He didn't have his best year last year, but this dude is a great all-around player. He's a key part of Dallas. I think Dallas, like I said, I don't expect them to be great, but they will be good in the regular season. So I think Heiskanen continues to improve offensively, and he gets over 59.5 points. Moritz Seider. He plays for the Detroit Red Wings. I know people aren't really familiar with him, but this guy's really, really good. 53.5 is his point total. He had 42 last year, but this guy's just getting going. This is his third season, and he is continuing to get better and better each and every year. So we'll go with Seider over 53.5. And then another Penguin bet. I put these on here just because these were things that I could kind of get behind. Chris Letang over 45.5 points. He had 51 last year, and he didn't have a very good season. Now, I would say that his season was better than a lot of people described. The Penguins just as a whole didn't have a good season. He was on and off the power play. The power play didn't do anything regardless of who was out there. So I think they maybe get that fixed up a little bit. And if Letang stays healthy, I think he'll probably get 50 points just because of his ice time. So, and there's a chance Carlson could start the year injured. So maybe Letang gets a little more ice time on the power play. We'll go over 45.5 for Chris Letang, and then one under for the point totals. Mitch Marner. He had 85 points for the Toronto Maple Leafs last year. His number this year, 94.5. I don't expect the Maple Leafs to be quite as good as they were last year, at least regular season-wise. Yes, these guys produced a lot of points, but they also have a new coach, Craig Berube. He plays a little bit different style than what they're used to playing. So there's going to be a little bit more defensive accountability here. So Mitch Marner is going to have to mind the defensive zone a little bit more than he ever did. So I think that's going to take away from some of his offensive prowess. And Austin Matthews is still going to have 60 goals, and the Leafs are going to score a lot of goals. But I think Marner takes a back seat to that. When you have a guy like Matthews out there having the ability to freelance, you got to have somebody that's going to cover up. So Marner is going to be in a more responsible role, I think, than he ever was before. 94.5 will go under that. So that's Marner under 94.5 points. Chris Letang over 45.5. Moritz Seider over 53.5. Miro Heiskanen over 59.5. And Roman Josi over 82.5. And those are our NHL future bets for this year on Bettor's Last Stand. So we hope those turn out to be okay. We'll track those throughout the season, and hopefully come springtime, we'll be looking to cash a few of those. Nonetheless, it's exciting to have hockey back. We'll be talking about first periods and second periods, all that good stuff, the totals, the power play points, which I talked about last year on the show about the value there. There's things out there you can find, and you got to hunt. You got to understand what you're trying to get. A lot of times, the market you're trying to bet is offered in another way, just described differently, worded differently, but maybe similar result and maybe a lot better value. So we'll take looks at that and much, much more as the hockey season kicks off next week. We're going to take a break here on Bettor's Last Stand, show number 103 from the Pine Room Watchdog Studio, downtown Wheeling. We'll be back to talk all things football. It's football, football, football. Although Australian rules football has been put to bed, we still got soccer, we still got CFL, and of course, pro and college football in the Americas. It's Bettor's Last Stand, show 103. We'll be back in a moment.
Reminder, this show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. All wagering activities should only be conducted by those 21 years of age or older and within the confines of federal, state, and local law. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, contact 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. All right, men, load the cannons and hold the line. You're listening to Bettor's Last Stand.
On we go here, recapping Bettor's Last Stand, show 103. We are on right now. Let's talk about what we gave out on 102. We were up about 10.5 units on the week, so not a bad time for us. Not great, but nonetheless, it was a profitable week. Could have been better. Could have been a lot worse. EPL-wise, we were 3-5-2. Champions League-wise, 3-1 with some pending action right now. Actually, one of the games going against us right now, it looks like, is Bayern Munich may be getting beat by Aston Villa, which is just stunning to me. But nonetheless, Unai Emery doing a very nice job as a manager for Aston Villa, and this was a game we talked about last week about Villa not really selling out for their weekend game, and that proved to be true to be ready for this one. So it looks like they maybe are, and that could be a loss for us. We hope not. AFL-wise, 5-4, Australian rules football in the books, but we get the job done with the Brisbane Lions at 7-1. They cash, they win the grand final in impressive fashion, taking down the Sydney Swans by 60 points, and it was an impressive beating by the Lions. CFL, we were 3-2 on the week. College football, 9-7-2 with our best bet, the Louisville Cardinals. Depending on what you got the number at, I gave it out 6.5. I bet it at 6.5. I bet it at 7, and I bet it at 7.5. So I got a loss, a win, and a push out of it. Hopefully you were able to comment on the push or the win side, but nonetheless, it counts as a loser. We're 1-4 on our best bets in college football. So we're doing all right in college football, but we can't get the best bets to come through. So that's all right. NFL, we were 5-9. Best bet with Carolina was no good, so we fall to 3-1 on the season for those. NASCAR, we had 3 top 10s, Byron, Elliott, and Bowman. AFL outrights, as I said, 7-1 winner with the Brisbane Lions. President's Cup, we had Xander Schauffele and Hideki Matsuyama, top point getters for their respective nations or groups of nations. And we talked NHL futures previously on the show. So if you are interested in hockey at all, get on over to PineRoomStudios.com. You can listen to the full version of Bettor's Last Stand. You can go to our YouTube page, Pine Room Studios, or you can get it wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Apple. You can listen to the full version of Bettor's Last Stand. First segment, we talked about baseball, we talked about golf, we talked about WNBA, we talked racing, and we talked hockey. Gave you out some hockey futures as we get close to hockey season here. It starts next week for the NHL guys, so I'm very, very excited about that one. But the focus at hand today on a Football Friday is, of course, football. So we get to the football portion of the program, and we start off by recapping the AFL. As I said, we cashed with the Brisbane Lions, 7-1 last week, winning the grand final. They won 120-60. We cashed almost all the goal props that we had last week. So it was a good final weekend for us in the AFL. Sad to see it go, nonetheless. But the Lions, much the best. They just dominated the game from start to finish, and we couldn't get that under. And I liked that under, and they were so dominant. It ended up going over by a couple of points. But a great season of AFL football, and I'm really going to be bummed out not having it for the next few weeks and months. Spring will be here before we know it, as it so often is. It comes and goes very, very quickly. Let's start off in Canadian football this week. Let's go to it. Last week in Canadian football, we were 3-2. We got 3 games to go over here. Friday night game, Winnipeg at Hamilton. It'll be Winnipeg on the road. The total 50.5, and we're going to go over in this game. I think Winnipeg has won. Let's see. Winnipeg has, I think, won 2 or 3 in a row. They've been pretty good lately. So I'm wrong. They've won 7 in a row. I thought it was 2 or 3. I thought they had a loss mix in there, but no, they've won 7 in a row. So the Blue Bombers pretty strong right now, but laying 4.5 on the road, I don't like it. 3 of the last 4 have went over in this series, and I think that this one has a really good shot to go over. Hamilton playing better too. They've won 4 in a row also. So you got a couple of hot teams here. I think the offenses continue to stay hot, and we get this game over the 50.5. The Calgary Stampeders at the BC Lions. This is a good matchup of Western Canada, of course. It will be the Lions minus 7.5. The total 53, and the home team's won 4 out of 5 in this matchup. That would be BC. Last 2 have stayed under, but we're going to go over here. I feel like this game has a shot of going over. Calgary winless in their last 6, so if you wanted to take BC, I could see why, but we'll go over 53. And then on Saturday, it'll be the Saskatchewan Roughriders at the Edmonton Elks. It'll be Saskatchewan minus 2.5 on the road. The total 50.5. The last 3 in this series have went over. And get this, the road team, 9-1 ATS in the last 10. We're taking the road team. I'm going with Saskatchewan. I think they go into Edmonton and get the job done. Minus the 2.5. We'll go with the Roughriders on the road. Again, the road team in the Saskatchewan-Edmonton series, 9-1 ATS in the last 10. So quite remarkable there. And I'll tell you what else is quite remarkable. A couple of the bad beats that we want to talk about here. Every week we say the same thing as Benfica is just destroying Atletico Madrid now 4-0. We talk about it every week. Baseball, soccer, tennis, basketball, whatever. You can find bad beats literally everywhere. A couple of these ones, I think even Van Pelt had these on his show, which I don't even like taking ones that he uses just because I like to find other ones. But there's so many of them out there. Wisconsin plus 13.5. This was a bigger game, so everybody knew this one at the time. They were in total control of this game in the third quarter. Then they had some terrible mistakes. They had drop passes, they had fumbles, they had interceptions due to drop passes. And then it got away from Wisconsin really, really quickly. They had a pick six with 5 minutes to go, trailing 41-31, and it was 31-28, and then it ended up being 41-31. So I think the final was. Nonetheless, Wisconsin falls apart in the late minutes of the game, loses to USC, and doesn't come close to covering that 13.5-point spread that they were looking like they were going to be in total control of the game. In this case, we would really have to screw up to not covering this game. Well, they did. Pick six, turned everything around. USF and Tulane, this one was harder to handle for me than that other one. The total is 60.5. If you had the over here, you got to be sick. It's 45-10. 45-10 with 12 minutes to go. 12:28 to be exact. So that's a ton of time. You literally need one more thing to happen here. I guess you need 2 field goals or an incredible Juventus down 2-1 with a guy sent off, and they've scored twice, a man down to go ahead 3-2 against RB Leipzig, who we of course have. Oh my, there you go. There's bad beats written all over it there. Nonetheless, USF Tulane, back to the business. 60.5. 45-10, so you got 55 points on the board with 12:28 to go in the game. Tulane attempts to score multiple times from inside the 10-yard line as they have the ball with 3+ minutes left. And they get down to the 1-yard line, and they try to sneak it in. And they couldn't get it in. It was a first down, though, so they tried again, and they got stopped. The quarterback really was trying to score, and he couldn't. So then they take it down with 2:28 to go. They let the 2-minute warning come, or 2-minute timeout, as they say. It hits the 2-minute timeout. They come out, and they're in victory formation, and they kneel. Just horrible. Just terrible. There was so many opportunities that you had to have won that game, and only needing one score with 12.5 minutes left is just sickening. So tough one there. Ex-Jags employee who stole $22 million from the team, he's now suing FanDuel for $250 million. So I don't know what his case is going to be here. Is that you should have caught me. I was a thief, and you just let me rack this up. So now I'm going to sue you for $250 million when I stole 22. I hope the judge kicks his case out quickly, because I don't think FanDuel held a weapon to this man's head and said bet. Caesars took an $80,000 bet in-game on Alabama money line at -5,000. Do you think this guy was sweating? Do you think this guy's alive still? I wouldn't have been, and again, none of us who listen to this program would ever do something this stupid. So you're betting $80,000. You would have got back $1,600. If you have $80,000, why in the world are you worried about $1,600 more? Oh, goodness. I don't understand the stupidity of humans. Nonetheless, this guy eked it out. Big win, $1,600 for the $80,000 risk. NFL underdogs 11-4 ATS once again this week. They are on fire. We talk about it here every single week. NFL dogs of 5.5 points or greater, 17-4-1 ATS, 11-11 straight up. So that continues on a strong trajectory. NFL teams 3-0 to the under so far this year. Just 2 left, Giants and Chargers. NFL unders are 34-27-1 on the season. The Vikings remain the only team unbeaten against the spread at 4-0 ATS. Jared Goff's 18 for 18 on Monday Night Football. The first time this has happened since 1942. The Redskins, or whatever they were called then, Washington team of some kind, they were 1 for 1 in the game for the 100% completion percentage. Goff a little bit trickier, 18 of 18 for him. So well played there, Jared Goff. Lopsided games from Week 4, recapping them in the NFL. In the NFL, these have really, really, really went against you if you're playing these teams. So you got to continue to look at the underdogs in these spots, or the teams with the lower ticket count and maybe a little bit more money on them. 79% on Dallas, loss. 79% on the Steelers was a loss. 74% on the Rams was a loss. 67% on the Vikings was a win. The Eagles, 67% loss. Saints, 66% loss. Texans, 66% loss. Bengals, 66%, but that wasn't a really comfortable win. So it was a win, but it wasn't really comfortable. 65% on the Bills, loss, and 65% on the Lions was a win, but they had to work for it. Goff had to go 18 of 18 to cover that one. Lopsided counts here in Week 5 so far. 88% back on the Vikings, 82% on the Raiders, 82% on the Ravens, 74% against the on the Saints, 78% on the Seahawks, 72% on the Cardinals, and 68% on Buffalo. So for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, maybe those are the ticket accounts. So that's 88% of all tickets written into sports books have been on the Minnesota Vikings. So that is a astounding number. That means the public is on them heavily, and that trend has not come up good. So you want to be on the team against them. And I'm not saying to bet these blindly, but if you did bet them blindly, you would have went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 3 last week. That's not bad. And you would have had plus money on a lot of those because you had a couple of outright dogs who won outright. So keep an eye on those. In the NFL, that's been pretty strong. So, again, the teams to go against this week, you got 88% on the Vikings, 82% on the Raiders, 82% on the Ravens, 74% on the Saints, 78% on the Seahawks, 72% on the Cardinals, and 68% on the Bills. That means people are betting them hand over fist. They can't wait to get up there and bet them. That's public money. Those are public ticket counts, and you usually don't want to be on that side. College-wise, Alabama versus Georgia draws the biggest TV audience since 2017 at 12 million. The Heisman now, Jalen Milroe does what he usually does, performs well in a big game. He's now plus 230. Travis Hunter 4-1. Cam Ward 6-1, and the Genty guy from Boise State off to a good start too. He's 11-1, a little bit of a dark horse there, but he's been pretty impressive. Week 5 lopsided results in college. These ones aren't as bad as the NFL. The college favorites are a little bit better. They seem to be sustaining a little better than the pros. 93% on Oklahoma, that was a win. 91% on Iowa State, that was a win. 90% on Michigan was a loss. 89% on JMU was a win. 88% on Illinois was a win. 87% on Miami was a loss. They were lucky to have won the game at all. Nebraska, 87% on that one. That was not an easy one. I had Nebraska, and they struggled the whole game until they pulled away late. 85% on Navy. That one was an easy one, a winner. 79% on Colorado, a winner. This week's lopsided ticket count for college football week number 6, 93% of all bets on James Madison to this point. 91% on Clemson. 88% on Colorado State, 88% on Army, 88% on Indiana, 83% on USC, 79% on Tennessee, 76% on Toledo, 76% on Utah State, and 73% on Arizona State. As I said earlier in the program, if you didn't pick it up, I'm sure if you were just listening on the Watchdog, you wouldn't have heard me say, this is the week where I think it's 55 straight days of some football action. So you should be happy if you're a football holic. That is for sure. We'll keep it rolling here. Bettor's Last Stand show number 103 on the Watchdog Network here, bringing you up to the Football Friday conclusion as it's Wheeling Central, Wheeling Park, and John Marshall all in action tonight on WatchdogNetwork.com. Pre-game show follows us. It'll be myself, Jeff, Chubb, and Chris in the Watchdog studio getting you ready for John Marshall, Wheeling Park, and Wheeling Central football. We'll bring you comprehensive breakdowns of the games, tell you what teams are having what for lunch, the really important stuff. You can hear it on the WatchdogNetwork.com. And again, thanks to all of our sponsors, Gumby's and Jill's Gentlemen's Club, for sponsoring Football Fridays, as well as all of our wonderful sponsors for the games, the Health Plan, IBEW, and so forth. The guys were out at Belmont Savings Bank. I wasn't able to make it because I had work conflict, but they were out at Belmont Savings Bank on Tuesday for a nice visit with Todd Cover and the nice folks over at Belmont Savings Bank in Bel Air, getting the little vibe going for the Football Friday week, and we appreciate Belmont Savings Bank for everything that they've done sponsoring Football Fridays here on the Watchdog and our high school football action in the evenings. All right, let's get to the EPL now. EPL, we were 3-5-2 last week. Some heartbreaking scores. Oh, and we get a break. Monaco evens things up late. All right, so maybe we stave off death there with Monaco. It was down 2-0. Coming back maybe, and maybe Bayern Munich has something up their sleeve. No, I don't think they're going to. I think Bayern Munich's about toast right here. Wow. Did not expect this one. Did not expect this one at all. Bayern Munich, who had been playing so well, nothing happening here for them. All right, let's get into it here. Let's fly through these EPLs. We got Liverpool at Crystal Palace. Liverpool, pretty good favorite right now. Liverpool taking care of business in the Champions League right now. They just won 2-0 over Bologna. I like this game under 3. I think both these teams come back. Liverpool a little bit exhausted. They're probably just going to go on the road and try to keep this game as low as they possibly can. We're going to go under the 3. Crystal Palace 0-2-1 at home. They have not been spectacular. A draw maybe in the cards here. So you could get a draw at plus 370. Palace is plus 485. Liverpool minus $2. But we'll go the under. The under 3. 5 of the last 6 under in this matchup. Southampton at Arsenal. Arsenal's won the last 6 in the series. They're off a very nice win yesterday in the Champions League against Paris Saint-Germain, so they did that job. So we got that one. That was one of our winners this week. 3 of the last 5 in this matchup have went over, but I don't have a real play here. I'm always a little bit leery when the teams come back after really big wins. Actually, Arsenal was home, but when they have to play a league match after a tough game, Arsenal minus $8. I just can't lay that. Southampton, who I think will be relegated, plus $17. Nah. I mean, I guess they could make a semi-case for a draw here, plus 825, but I don't know. I wouldn't waste my money on that one. Ipswich and West Ham. Ipswich winless in 6 overall. West Ham winless in 5 overall. Something's got to give here. West Ham has won the last 3 in this series. So West Ham a minus 125 favorite. Ipswich plus 320, plus 290 on the draw. I think both teams to score here makes a lot of sense. It's maybe minus 140 or so. So I think both teams at least get a goal. 4 of the last 5 have went over in this fixture, and the last 3 have went over. So we're going to go over. We're going to go over 2.5. It's actually juiced a tad in the under here, which is a little bit strange. So we'll go over Ipswich and West Ham 2.5 on Saturday. Another Saturday match, it'll be Wolverhampton Wanderers at Brentford. There's our boys Brentford. Wolves has lost 4 of 5. Actually, they've lost 4 straight because I had them at 4 of 5. They have lost 4 of 5, but it's actually 4 in a row that they have lost overall. So also winless in 5 is Wolves. I'm sorry. I was looking at West Ham again. So Wolves have lost 4 straight overall. Brentford have Brentford played okay last week. Not as good as I'd hoped. A 1-1 draw there. Didn't get the job done for us the way we had hoped to. Both teams have scored a goal the last 4 times they've played. So BTTS here may be the way to go. But I'm going to be back on Brentford at a very short price here. About even money, minus 105 maybe. We'll go with Brentford at home over Wolves. Fulham and Man City. Fulham has lost 16 straight fixtures to Manchester City. But a lot of teams have lost a lot on the road to Manchester City. City come into this game minus 430, minus 440 range. Fulham plus 950, $6 on the draw. The last 6 in this matchup have went over the total. So I think over 3.5, or actually it's 3 flat right now. So you can get 3 flat. Take over 3 flat at minus 125, and we'll be looking that way. But I also think if you parlay these 2 together, I don't like to do this very often, but in this case, it makes a lot of sense. Chances are if this match goes over, City will win the match. That's definitely correlated, but you can bet these like that. A lot of times you can't do it in other sports. But City and over, so if you play City money line and over 3, that gets you about plus 115, plus 120 back. So we'll go that route. We'll go City and over Fulham. Bournemouth and Leicester City. Bournemouth plus 115. They got the job done for us last week at a nice plus price, snapping that streak of like 7 straight road winners in that fixture. So Bournemouth got the job done at home. Leicester plus 225 on the pullback. Draw is plus 260. BTTS is where I go here. I think it's probably going to be a goal each for these teams. Maybe Bournemouth wins it 2-1, but not a strong play. Newcastle at Everton 12:30 on Saturday. I like Newcastle in this one. 4 of the last 6 have gone to the home team in this matchup. Now Everton is the home team, but they're struggling very badly. Now they did play better last week, I will say. And Newcastle at a plus price, they're far and away the better team here. So we'll go with Newcastle plus 115 to beat Everton. Then we go to the Sunday action. It will be Aston Villa, who is just off of a mammoth victory, maybe one of the biggest wins in the history of their entire club in the Champions League. Beating Bayern Munich at home, just giant, like just absolutely giant. So I was going to give a play out on Aston Villa here against Man United, but I'm not going to probably do that now. I think both teams will score in this game. I think that could be a safe play. I was gonna go with Villa, but I'd be a little bit worried now after that huge win. I mean, these people are celebrating like they just won the Champions League. This is match day 2, so I would be, I don't know. I'd be a little bit concerned, and I thought it really made a lot of sense for him. Bruno is out for Manchester United. He got a red card last game, Bruno Fernandes, so big loss for them. He's the key to the entire team. So I thought Villa really would have a shot. They still might. So if you still believe in Villa, play him at the plus 130. I'd just be a little bit leery about the hangover. Nottingham Forest and Chelsea, Sunday match, 9 a.m. 3 of the last 5 under in this series. Cole Palmer scored 4 times last week for Chelsea in a victory. The home team winless in the last 4, so that's interesting. Chelsea is the home team here. 3 of the last 5 under, as I said. No real play here. I can't figure Chelsea out there. They gave up 2 goals last week. They had been on a clean sheet run. They scored 4. Maybe over is just the way to go every match for this team. Tottenham and Brighton and Hove Albion. Tottenham is actually at home here, which this can't be right. I'm sorry. They're on the road. Okay. They have to be on the road because the NFL is playing at their stadium, and I know they're not going to be able to play them both the same day. It's impossible. Brighton plus 180, Spurs plus 130 on the road. Huge win for Spurs last week against United. We had a BTTS there, and United could not get the job done. Last 3 over in this series between the Seagulls and the Hot Spurs. I like Brighton here. I think both teams score in this game, but I like Brighton plus the 180. BTTS here again for me with Spurs and Brighton. Home team 3-0 in the last 3. So we'll go with the Seagulls to bounce back. They scored twice at Chelsea but gave up 4. So I think they'll be a little bit better on defense, but I think Spurs gets on the board and they both score. But I'm going to take the Seagulls there plus 180. So again, it's Brighton on the money line against Spurs, and then both teams to score in that game. It will be Aston Villa, but I'm apprehensive about that pick. Both teams to score in that game against Manchester United. Newcastle on the money line. Bournemouth and Leicester, both teams to score. Manchester City and over 3. That gets you a plus 115 return. Brentford money line minus 105. Ipswich and West Ham will go over 2.5, and both teams to score. And Liverpool and Crystal Palace will go under 3 or 3.5. Those are our EPL plays for the week. Champions League is off next week. They do games every 2 weeks, so we'll get a break from Champions League next week. But get ready because we'll be talking about the following week's games, before we know it. So next week's show we'll be talking about and getting prepped for the games the following week as they start on Tuesday and Wednesday in this brand new format with a lot of good stuff started out already. There's going to be some teams in desperate circumstances here coming next week. All right, let's move along. Let's get into pro football, everybody's favorite thing. Pro football, yippee! Can't find enough winners in pro football. Let's see. We were okay last week, not great. Actually, I should say we weren't good. 5-9. I can't even say that's okay. It's terrible. Not good enough. So we'll try. That's the worst week we've had so far. So we're due to pick it back up and hopefully get you back into the win column. As I mentioned, we'll have a game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London on Sunday morning. It will be the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Jets. It'll be the Vikings minus 2.5 currently. The total 40.5. This opened up Jets minus 2.5. Sharp money is going on the Jets now. I don't really understand. Again, possibly a head fake move here where somebody manipulates the line, buys in hard on the Vikings somewhere, starts showing some money on the Vikings. They move the number and then comes back on the Jets. I don't know that to be the case, but sharp money on the Jets. Public money, as we said earlier, the ticket count is all over the Vikings here. 40.5 is the total. That's where I'm going to go. The soccer pitch issue to me, although maybe I'm looking at this wrong now that I think about it. I went under in this game, but the soccer pitch issue down in Brazil turned out to be an over because guys were slipping and sliding everywhere. In this case, I'm going to take a shot that it's going to be an under. that these soccer fields aren't made for 300-pound dudes on them. These guys are 150, 60 pounds and lean as can be, light on their feet, not digging in and pushing off the way that they do in football. It's a totally different sport, obviously. And these pitches are not made. Now, while they look good, they come apart on these guys. So I'm going to take a shot that the footing is poor and that the teams are struggling to run the ball. And maybe that just leads to no gains and short yards and the clock runs a lot. But I guess the argument could be made for the other side of that is that defensive backs are slipping and you're giving up big plays. So whatever you think might happen, go with your gut instinct on that one. Mine just said under, but that's not always the case. Minnesota's defense has been good. Jets have been pretty solid on defense, not good on offense, so maybe the under is the right way. So we'll go under 40.5 in that one. Carolina at the Bears. Bears -4 in this game. The total 41.5. Bears very lucky to have won last week. Didn't play great against the Rams, who were terrible. Carolina, not good. Hung around with the Bengals. Didn't do anything too impressive. And I don't really have a play on this game. The total 41.5, as I said, I would maybe lean to the under here, but I don't have a feel on that game whatsoever. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Baltimore -2.5, total 50.5, up from the opener of 47.5. So that's a little curious there. I think people were thinking points are going on the board. I don't necessarily see it that way. Bengals won't be able to run the ball at all on the Ravens, and I think that they become a one-dimensional team, which I think really does favor Baltimore here. Baltimore's the better team. Cincinnati's desperate. I lean Baltimore here -2.5. If I get less than a field goal, Baltimore's the much better team, so we'll go with the Ravens. Indianapolis at Jacksonville. Jacksonville -3. The total 46. Public money already on Indy. Will Joe Flacco be back? That is the question, because if Joe Flacco plays, Indy would interest me a tad. If he doesn't play and it's Anthony Richardson, I will go Jacksonville. Jacksonville, absolutely desperate right now. I mean, totally desperate. 0-4. I mean, this is it. I mean, I can't believe Peterson still has a job after last week's performance. They let the game get away late. They're a mess. They're a mess. And that was one of the future bets that we are way off on. We were way off on the Jacksonville Jaguars. So apologies for that one. I'm going to go Jacksonville in this game if Richardson starts. So that's the premise here. If Anthony Richardson is back for the Colts, we will go with the Jags -3. If Joe Flacco is starting for the Colts, we will pass on this game. Buffalo at Houston. Sharp money on the Bills. It's now Bills -1 on the road. I'm on the Bills as well. I think they're much better than Houston. I think Houston's a good team, but I knew they were going to have some setbacks, some regression from last year. You know, it's just natural. Buffalo -1 on the road, total 47. We'll go with the Bills. I think they get back on the winning track. They ran into a hot Baltimore team yesterday, or earlier this week, Sunday to be exact. And I think that the Bills, weren't as bad as that showed. So we'll go with them. Houston's been a little iffy lately, so we're going to go with the Bills on the road. Cleveland at Washington. It'll be the Redskins -3. The total 44.5, up from the opener of 42.5, and up from Washington opening as a 1-point favorite to a 3-point favorite. Public money on the Washington Redskins. What is going on here? What a difference a quarterback can make here. Browns really teetering on the brink of disaster, but this to me seems like maybe a spot to play the Browns. I don't love that. I don't love it. I don't know if I'm going to make it an official play or not, but I would take the Browns plus the field goal right now, just when it seems that they're done, dead, and buried, and the Washington's unbeatable. The exact reverse happens in the NFL. Miami at New England. Miami was -1. Now it's New England -1. 35.5 on the total there. I lean Patriots here. I watched the Dolphins, and I don't know where the misconception that Tyler Huntley is a really good quarterback. I heard a lot of people telling me that this week about the Dolphins, they're going to have a really good chance because Tyler Huntley's playing instead of Skylar Thompson. Well, I didn't understand that because I watched Tyler Huntley numerous times replace Lamar Jackson. And although he kept him in games, he never really did anything to win a game. He was just not that good of a passer. He's just not. I didn't understand where that narrative came from. I know they played a lot of games with the Steelers that are always close, but that doesn't mean he was playing great. Huntley's he's all right backup, but if you're going to have to start him every week, it's not going to turn out well. So I'll go with New England here. Brissett, much better. New England defense, tough at home, and Miami looks like a team that's got to answer a lot of questions. Mike McDaniel, he's now right up on the hot seat with Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy, and some others. I'll go with New England here. I think they win this game outright, and they might win pretty handily. Las Vegas at Denver. Denver -3. Oh, God. 36 the total there, down from the opener of 38. Public money on the Raiders here. I can't play either one of these teams. I cannot back the public team that the Las Vegas Raiders that everybody is on. I don't understand that, but I can't go with Denver either. Denver is doing nothing to win these ball games. They're awful, and teams are letting them off the hook. The Jets, inexcusable loss to them last week. Just inexcusable. Couldn't score a touchdown. I do think Denver's defense is solid. And the Raiders were adequate on defense, and I don't think that Bo Nix is going to be doing much. So I would like this game under the 36. That is Raiders, Broncos under 36. Sunday, 4:05. Arizona at San Francisco. San Francisco -7.5. The total, 49.5. I lean Arizona here. Don't really have a strong play. Shanahan pretty good against his division opponents. Arizona did not play well last week against Washington. I think they bounce back a little bit. I'll take the touchdown and the half point with the Cardinals. But just a lean. Green Bay at the Rams. Green Bay -3.5 on the road. Total 48. One thing I've learned about the Rams is when you think they're dead and buried or they've had a bad week, they usually bounce back strong. And I'll be on the Rams here. If I'm getting a field goal, 3.5 or a field goal at home against the Packers, who have been terrible. Jordan Love 0-2. Somehow Malik Willis has a better record than him. That's not sustainable. Doesn't make any sense. But I will say I was never a Jordan Love guy. I never thought he was that good. Now, I said that he proved me wrong last year. He improved a lot, and he was a serviceable NFL quarterback. So I was wrong about that. But I don't think he's great, and I don't think he is going to just blow things away. And now he's the highest paid quarterback in the league. It's just outrageous. And I'll be taking the Rams. I think they win that game and definitely cover the 3.5. The total, 48. Man, it went up to 48 from 44.5. I would lean under in the game, to be honest with you. I think that the Packers tend to play unders just by the way that their roster's constructed. And the Rams probably need to try to keep this low scoring as well, with some of the injuries that they have. The Giants and the Seahawks, 4:25 kick. It'll be Seattle -6. The total, 43.5. Open 42. It's actually up to 44 now at many places. The under, again, something that I'm a little bit interested in here. That's about it. I don't love anything else in this game. 6 is too much to lay. Giants are just scrappy enough they could cover that. You saw what they did against Dallas. Saw what they did against the Browns. So they got back-to-back ATS wins. Seattle, not embarrassed by any means at Detroit. Played okay, just couldn't get stops when they needed to. So I think they bounced back a little bit. So I like this game to stay under the 43.5. Dallas at Pittsburgh, Sunday Night Football. It'll be the Steelers -2.5. The total, 43. It opened Dallas 1. Now, as I said, Steelers up to 2.5. This game's weird to me. Tomlin did his usual Tomlin and lost to an inferior team last week. But I will say, to excuse it, no, actually, it's really can't excuse it because his reason for why they got beat, it's like they didn't know who Flacco was. He's only played against him like 25 times in his career. Flacco coming in was the difference in that game. I think Steelers probably would have ended up winning it had he not, but Tomlin always loses to these bad teams. Dallas, another team, loses to bad teams quite often. Mike McCarthy's terrible. Mike Tomlin's terrible. These are two coaches that if you turn on these morning shows, they're going to tell you how great they are. They're just not. Mike Tomlin, he hasn't won a playoff game in so long. Like, I feel like I was a teenager the last time he won a playoff game. I mean, I'm just tired of hearing how good Coach T is. He's just not. He's just average is what he is. If 500 is what you like, then Mike Tomlin's your guy. But if you want to win championships, win divisions, win playoff games, he's not your guy. But neither is Mike McCarthy. Both these guys, two clowns, to be honest with you. But I do like this game over. I think both teams will make some plays on offense due to the fact that the other team's defense has some holes. I don't think Pittsburgh's defense is nearly as good as it gets billed to be. Watt was a no-show. That might be a problem for Dallas this week with the tackles that they have. Dallas banged up on defense without Parsons and Lawrence in the middle. That could be a problem. But the Steelers, to me, just don't have great offensive players. Now, I do think they'll score some points here. And Justin Fields, he's just not a pro quarterback. I don't care what anybody tells me or says on TV. They're just not right. If they watch these games, this dude can't play. He turned it over at key times last week, and he's just not good enough. He's just not good enough. It'd be a lesser of two evils games here for me, so I'm not going to pick either one of these sides. I will go over the 43, though. I do like this game to have some points. I think Dallas will get some big plays. I think Pittsburgh will get some big plays, both against beleaguered secondaries, just teams that are a little unsure about themselves, at least in my opinion. Monday Night Football, Kansas City hosts New Orleans. Public all over the Saints here. The public hates the Chiefs. If you haven't figured that out, now still people will bet them, and they haven't covered. I think they've only covered once the whole year. 5 seems low to me for the Chiefs. I think they're vastly better than the Saints here, and I think they cover that 5 for sure. The total 42.5. Don't really have a strong opinion on that. I'd lean to the under. Chiefs are an under team now. They're definitely not that over team that they once were. Rice is out for the year, so they're a little bit beat up, but Mahomes will find a way here. I think they win, pull away late, win by probably 10 points or so. And that concludes week number 5, our NFL selections here on Bettor's Last Stand. Show 103, getting ready to bring you high school football action here on the Watchdog. Got the pregame show coming up next. Myself, Jeff, Chubb, and Chris from the Watchdog studio. And then we'll send it out to the fellas to the games that you want to listen to. It'll be John Marshall hosting Warren. Wheeling Park hosts Morgantown. And Wheeling Central will welcome Ron Brown Prep from Washington, D.C. All coming your way here just after 7 o'clock Eastern Time here on the Watchdog. Get on over to watchdognetwork.com. You can hear all those games there. You can listen to Wheeling Park on WVOY. You can listen to Wheeling Central on WKKX. And you get the John Marshall Monarchs on watchdognetwork.com. So don't miss all the action. We'll have the pregame here shortly after 6 p.m. before we send it out to the fellas on site at the particular spots. And it'll be Coach Luke and Nick on the call for Wheeling Park. At Wheeling Central, Soup out of commission this week. So I believe Jarrett and Cooley will be doing the broadcast for that game. And they'll be coming to you from the Flooring Center broadcast booth, I believe. I'm not sure if they have a sideline reporter secured yet. We'll find out in a couple of hours. And then down at John Marshall, of course, the crew that you know so well here on the Watchdog Network, Ross Johnston, Coach Treveri, and Coach Heinerman on the call for Warren and John Marshall. All right, let's roll along here. Bettor's Last Stand, Show 103, presented by the Brownie House. Get on over to yesbrownies.com today. Use the promo code PINEROOM for 20% off your next order. And they are delicious products from the Brownie House. That's yesbrownies.com. Rolling along on a Football Friday here. Bettor's Last Stand it is. Football Fridays presented, as always, by Gumby's and Jill's Gentlemen's Club. We were down at the zoo in Moundsville today, having fun with the Gumby's folks on another Football Friday. So excited to be with you now and take you up to the high school football action here this evening. All right, let's get into the college football week number 6 rundown for you. Friday night, we got games again on Friday. We had interesting games last week on Friday. We got 4 more tonight. It'll be Jacksonville State on the road at Kennesaw State. Jacksonville State minus 16.5, up from the opener of 14.5. The total 48.5. I'm going to go with the Kennesaw State Owls here. I think they're improving a little bit. I know they haven't covered the way that I thought they would early on. I think the odds makers actually gave them a little bit more respect than I expected early. Their numbers seemed a little low. So we'll take 16.5. I bet this will be 17 by the time the game kicks. And we'll take the Owls at home. Houston at TCU. TCU minus 16.5. The total 51.5. I like the under here. I think Houston, a team, struggles to score. TCU, a team that actually gave up a little bit more last week than I expected. And they scored a little bit more than I expected against Kansas. But we'll go with the Horned Frogs, return home, put the clamps on Houston, and win this game probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 37-10 or something like that. Michigan State at Oregon, a Friday night Big Ten matchup from coast to coast. Actually, central United States out to the coast. It'll be the Ducks minus 24. And a total 52.5. Sharp money on the Ducks so far at the minus to 24. Now, interestingly enough, Michigan State played Ohio State last week. Didn't have anything for them. And the Ducks now play Michigan State. And then they play Ohio State next week. So we'll see how this one goes. A lot of people will be trying to ascertain the winner for next week about how this game turns out, seeing if Oregon is able to beat Michigan State worse than Ohio State did or something like that. But all these games are different because the matchups are so different. I like the under in this game, 52.5. Oregon has not been a great offense this year. Michigan State is a terrible offense. Michigan State on defense, they're so-so. I expect this game to be a little bit lower scoring. I think, Oregon can win this game 31-13 or something like that. So I'll be taking the under in that game. So 2 unders for us on Friday. Syracuse and UNLV, the nightcap on Friday, 9 o'clock FS1. UNLV, 6.5 at home, 58.5 on the total. UNLV opened 3, up to 6.5. Didn't seem to faze them that their quarterback tried to extort the school for more money. Although it doesn't sound like the school was in the wrong here, promising the kid something and not delivering. So I do kind of feel bad for the dude a little bit. But nonetheless, UNLV's back up better probably. And they rolled. And will they roll this week? People are betting them like they already know the score. Syracuse is not an awful team. I contemplated the over. I just have no good feel in this game. So I'm not going to recommend anything here. UNLV and Syracuse will be a pass for me on Friday night. Let's get to the Saturday card. It's a noon kick. It's Missouri at Texas A&M. I'll be on the Tigers here, catching the 2 on the road. The total, 48.5. I think Missouri's is a little bit better team. Now, A&M has won 4 in a row since losing to Notre Dame. I just am not impressed with this team at all. Thought they would lose a couple other games that was against them a few times, but wasn't anything that we could do about it. They outperformed, I guess, and I don't expect that to continue. The elusive 12th man will be in full form, but I just don't think it'll be enough. Missouri actually a little bit better even than I thought. I thought they lost a lot from last year, but I think they go on the road, get the job done here. Pitt at North Carolina. North Carolina's been a mess lately. Lost to Duke. Prior week they got blowed out. Pitt on the road, -3, total 64. I mean, maybe the over here, but I have no real play. Panthers better than I thought. The quarterback from Alabama, who I thought if he was good enough to be able to play at that level, he would have been able to, and he's surprised me. He's been better than I expected, so our Pitt win total bet not looking so sharp right now, as they're almost 2/3 of the way there already. Nothing on Pitt in North Carolina. SMU in Louisville. Louisville -7, total 56.5. We had both these teams last week. Louisville disappointed. SMU rolled as we thought they would. I should have given that out as my best bet as they take care of lowly Florida State. Just a superior team. Not sure they can do it here. Louisville, though, in a tough spot, coming back home after a tough defeat to Notre Dame, laying the 7. I'd lean the Cardinals, but I don't love anything here, so we're going to pass on that. And Wake Forest hosts NC State. Sharp money on the Wolfpack. I don't understand that. Wolfpack -5, total 54.5. I have no play here. Both those teams really, really bad. Boston College at Virginia, noon kick. It'll be the Cavaliers of Virginia -1, the total 53.5. I like this game over. Actually, you can find some 52s and some 52.5s out there, maybe a flat 53. I'd bet it all the way up to 55 right now. I think there's points in this game. The last few meetings, they've shown like they can score against each other. I like the Cavs and the Eagles over 53. UMass at Northern Illinois. Sharp money on UMass on the road, catching 17.5 against the Huskies, who we had last week. And they covered, but they couldn't get that money line win that I was hoping for. Total 44.5. No real play here. Slight lean to Northern Illinois, but nothing official for me. Big game here. Service Academy game here. Yes, Army-Navy gets all the billing, but this one should be a pretty good game. It's Navy on the road at Air Force. 35.5 is the total. Navy -10 in the game. It opened Navy -8. And I will tell you, and I mentioned it last week, Navy is not the Navy of old. Navy is going to be a team that can score. They've passed for over 200 yards now in the last 2 weeks, and they've been in the 160s or better, I think, every game this year. That is not normal. And they are changing their identity on offense, and they look good. They're scoring points against teams, powerful teams. Memphis. I mean, Memphis is a good power or non-power 5 team, and then they're beating them up and down the field. Last week they were outstanding again, scoring a ton of points. I think they scored 41. I'm really big on Navy for the overs in these games. And right now, if you could find an early number on Army-Navy over this year, I know it's gone under like 5 million times in a row, or 4 million, 9.9 million, or 999,000 times out of 5 million. I think this time it goes over the total. I don't see how they stop this Navy offense, and Army can score too. So I think both those teams really strong on offense this year for the first time in a long time. And the midshipmen, to me, are an over team. I like them in this game against Air Force. If I can get less than 10, I'll play them. But I really like this game over. That is my best bet of the week. Over 35.5, Army or Air Force and Navy. The last 4 have went under in this series. But, like I said, Coach Ken is not there anymore for Navy. This is a whole new revamped offense and revamped system, and they can pass the football. I really like this game over the 35.5. Midshipmen and Falcons, 12 o'clock. CBS on Saturday. Army, the other service academy, on the road at Tulsa. Army minus 11.5 is now up to 13. Total 51. Sharp money on Army. I'll pass on this game. No real feel. UCLA at Penn State. Penn State minus 28. Total 46. Franklin's not been covering the spreads, and his boosters are going to get pissed. So maybe he does do it this week and runs it up on UCLA if he can. I have no official play there. Penn State's burned me a couple times. I won't be back on them this week. Purdue at Wisconsin. Wisconsin minus 14. Total 46.5. This is the early afternoon, late morning snooze fest, compliments of the Big Ten, Purdue and Wisconsin. This game ought to put you to sleep. I don't know. There's no real exciting thing to give you here in the Wisconsin and Purdue game. I don't know. 5 straight overs in the series, though. We'll say that. And that might get you to wake up out of your slumber. So maybe a small lean to the over in that one, but I'm passing. Wisconsin coming off a terrible loss to USC. Purdue just beyond words. Terrible loss to Nebraska. Tulane and UAB. Tulane minus 14.5. Total 55.5. We talked about that one in the bad beats. Tulane the better team. I don't want to lay 14 in the hook on the road, though. Moving along, Auburn and Georgia. Georgia looks to bounce back after a great, valiant battle against Alabama. They fell behind very, very badly early on and came back and actually took the lead. I mean, if I was a Georgia fan, I'd have probably died. That was an incredible game. Georgia minus 24.5 at home, 52.5. I think Georgia probably gets well here. They probably take out their frustrations on Alabama's baby brother, Auburn. And I think this could get really ugly for Auburn, who lost one late against Oklahoma last week, gave a game away. So Tigers could be in big trouble. Hugh Freeze on the hot seat, heavy. We'll go Georgia. Minus 24.5. Iowa at Ohio State, 19.5. The Buckeyes lay. We actually got a spread inside the 30s for the first time. 44.5 on the total. Oregon's up next for Ohio State. Maybe a little bit of a look-ahead spot. So I might lean. If I could keep this at 20 or 19.5, I may take Iowa. So leaning Iowa there in that one, just because Ohio State's got their eye on the Ducks next week. East Carolina at Charlotte. East Carolina minus 9, a total 47. Sharp money on East Carolina. Not sure why. I have no play on that game. Ole Miss, South Carolina. It'll be the Rebels minus 9.5, the total 53.5. South Carolina taking sharp money. Maybe it's because Ole Miss plays LSU next week, and they think this could be a look-ahead spot. I did not like what I saw out of Ole Miss. Maybe the over here, the 53.5, they get the offense cranking a little bit. But South Carolina beat Kentucky, and then Kentucky beat Ole Miss. So hard to figure out these SEC games. You really don't get any time off. Miami, Ohio at Toledo. Toledo minus 6.5, the total 44. Pros versus Joe's game here. It'll be the public on Toledo, the sharp money on Miami, Ohio. I lean Miami, Ohio, but no real play. App State and Marshall. Marshall minus 3. Total 58. Sharp on Marshall. So pros getting on Marshall. I have no play on that game either. Indiana and Northwestern, another Big Ten showdown. Although Indiana is actually pretty fun to watch. Indiana on the road, minus 13.5 to total 42. It's opened 11.5 up to 13.5. A little worried about the public money coming on Indiana, but we have them on the win total bet, so we'll be happy to take this win. No real play. Lean Hoosiers if you get under the 2 touchdowns. Virginia Tech at Stanford. It'll be Virginia Tech on the road, minus 9. All of a sudden, they're good because they gave Miami a game? I don't think so. 49.5 the total there. Stanford takes on Notre Dame next week. Sharp money, though, on the Cardinal. I'm taking the Cardinal here. I think they win this game outright. I don't understand how Tech's laying 9 to anybody. We saw what happened to them in the first week of the season, laying points. I think Stanford, these guys are smart. Everybody that goes there is a pretty smart guy. They're not going to be overlooking. They need all the wins they can get, and they're not going to be overlooking Virginia Tech to play Notre Dame. So I'll take Stanford Cardinal at home. Temple in Connecticut. It's Temple at Connecticut. Connecticut minus 16, up from the opener of 14, total 50. No play on that game. West Virginia at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State a mess right now. 3.5 the Cowboys are, down from the opener of 5 at home as they host the Mountaineers. The total 65.5. I 4 of the last 5 in this series have went under, so I'm going to go on the under here. I think you can get an under 66. That seems very high for an Oklahoma State offense that has really been feeble the last few weeks. Bowman has been a disaster. He looked like he had money on the game. He was throwing it all over the place last week to the other team. I didn't understand it. This could be Gundy's kid under center, or actually the gun. Who goes under center these days anyway? I like the under here. You can hear that game right here on the Watchdog. That'll be a 4 o'clock kick tomorrow afternoon. Mountaineers and Cowboys. I'm going under the 66. Rutgers at Nebraska. Nebraska -7. The total 41.5. This is too many points to be given Rutgers. Rutgers, well coached, balanced attack for the first time. They can actually move the ball a little bit. They're not a great offense, but they can control. They can get some first downs that they weren't able to be able to get. They used to be going 3 and out all the time and playing punt field position game. But Rutgers a little better than that this year. We'll go with the Scarlet Knights. We have them over their win total, and they've not disappointed us so far. We'll go with the Scarlet Knights plus the 7, and we're going to go under the 41.5. I think it's a tight one. Nebraska was not impressive against Purdue last week and have not been impressive really in any of their games. So we'll go with Rutgers, better coach team. I like Matt Rule, but Shiano's better, and we'll go under the 41.5. Alabama off the huge win against Georgia. They will visit Vanderbilt. Crimson Tide -23, 55.5 is the total. 4 of the last 5 have stayed under in this series, maybe an under 2. Alabama just gets in, gets out. They're not worried about that one until they get ready for their next big game. No real feel. Can't lay the 23 off of that huge win. It's tough to get back up. Colorado State at Oregon State. This one's a weird one. Oregon State -11.5, total 47.5. Lots of money showing on Colorado State. Public money. Weird. I'll pass on that game. Clemson, Florida State. Clemson -14.5 at Tallahassee. Total 47.5. Clemson has played better, but they've all been at home. Can they perform on the road? Florida State's really bad, but Uliungalale's not going to play. So I can't play Clemson. I don't know what Florida State's got behind them, and it can't be any worse. Pass on the game. But I'd lean Clemson, but I'm passing on the game because I can't lay 14.5 for an unproven team on the road. Utah State at Boise State. We talked about this one. Lopsided ticket amounts on the Utah State Aggies, catching 26.5 from Boise State. The total 66 here. I will pass on that game. Louisiana and Southern Miss. Louisiana on the road, -14.5. The total 57.5. Louisiana looks like it might be the right side here. Sharp money showing up on them. They're -14.5. Raging Cajuns playing pretty good. Lean Raging Cajuns in that one. Michigan and Washington in a conference showdown rematch of the national championship last year when Michigan was victorious. It'll be the Washington Huskies -3 at home. The total 41.5. Washington has played 9 out of their last 10 games to the under, and that's where I'll be going in this matchup. 41.5. Michigan going to struggle outside of the big house to move the ball. They got a good run game, which means clock, but they can't throw. Washington offense very compromised as well as they struggled last week against Rutgers. This has every makings of a 17-14 game. We will go with the Huskies and Wolverines under 41.5. Nevada at San Jose State. It will be San Jose State -6.5. The total 51 in this one. Nevada, this game opened 47.5 up to 51. So some money showing on the over there. I have no real play on the Wolfpack. On the Spartans, Tennessee and Arkansas. Tennessee on the road, -13.5. The total 60.5. Public loves Tennessee. Tennessee's pretty good. They're a little better than I expected, but they haven't played the greatest schedule. I'm not sure how good Oklahoma is, although my heart says I want them to be good for my cousin Jake. But we will hope that Oklahoma can continue on as they have a huge win next week against Texas in the Red River rivalry. And the Tennessee Volunteers were very impressive in Norman last week. Coming off a bye week, they could stomp Arkansas, who did not perform well last week at all. Maybe they were looking ahead to this game. So maybe a slight lean to the Pig Sueys if they're getting 14, but if it's anything less than that, probably lean Tennessee. Baylor at Iowa State. Iowa State -12, total 45.5. Iowa State's been okay. They've been better than expected. Baylor, Aranda, just every week I say this guy's at the end. He's got to win. I don't think he can. Move along. No play on that game. USC at Minnesota. Trojans -8.5 on the road. Total 51. USC hosts Penn State next week. Really, really big game. Huge game. If they're going to contend in a Big Ten, they got to win that game. So I think that they get caught looking ahead here. I think coming up, PJ Fleck, not the coach that everybody made him out to be. He's just not very good. He doesn't win any big games. But I like him to keep this close. I'm going to take a shot with the Golden Gophers plus the 8.5. This game may end up at 10. Public money on USC is heavy, too. I don't get it. Minnesota, they fought enough to bother Michigan last week. And I think that USC has a shot to lose this game outright. I really do. I think that Minnesota could possibly win it. And at plus 250 on the money line, maybe it's the Golden Gophers, but I am taking them plus the 8.5 and would take them a touchdown or more. UCF at Florida. UCF minus 2.5. It opened Florida 1, now up to UCF minus 2.5, 62. The total. Sharp money on the Gators. Can't play this game. You got Sunbelt Billy, and you got Gus Malzahn, and these two dudes are both a mess. So I'll pass on this game, Gators and Knights, maybe an over. Duke at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech minus 10 now from the opener of 8, up through 8.5, up to 10. Total 54. I think Georgia Tech bounces back. They were off. They had a bad performance at Louisville. Should have probably had a shot of winning that game. It made some really bad mistakes to lose that game. So I think they bounce back. Duke hasn't played anybody. They played total trash so far. They're undefeated somehow. I don't know how. But I think that bad schedule is going to catch up with them this week, and Georgia Tech's going to hammer the Blue Devils. So lay Georgia Tech in the Ramblin' Wreck minus the 10 at home. Kansas at Arizona State. Arizona State minus 3, the total 50. Public on Arizona State. Kansas off to a horrible start, 1-4. Desperately need this game. You know what? You don't want to mess with a wounded Jayhawk. It could be dangerous for you. So lean Jayhawks, but no real play in that one. Hawaii and San Diego State. It'll be San Diego State minus 2.5, the total 50.5, up from the opener of 47. Now San Diego State probably shouldn't be giving points to anybody, and sharp money showing on Hawaii. So maybe it's a rainbow night. I'm staying away from that one. And then there is almost a nightcap, the second to last game of the night. Miami, the Hurricanes at the California Golden Bears. California minus 10.5, the total 55.5. This is a game that has worried me as a Miami fan the entire year. I get to see how this was setting up. Virginia Tech is kind of a rivalry game. I knew we would be pretty decent, and we're going to be getting a lot of hoopla, and we're smelling ourselves, and people are pumping our tires, and we're walking around the 305 acting like we're good again when we're not. And that almost got us last week against Tech. We goofed around that whole game, and we're very fortunate to have won the game. Well, that worries me out here because California was off. They're a business-like team. They've already won a couple of nice games so far. They could have absolutely won at Tallahassee if they would have performed a little bit better. This is a game that Mario Cristobal could absolutely lose. So I got to recommend Cal Bears plus the 10.5. While I'm hopeful that I'm wrong and Miami takes care of this relatively easily, this has been a game that I've had circled as a potential loss all winter, all summer, I guess. This was a game that worried me. So I think the Golden Bears have a shot here. I do. I hate to say it, but I think they have a shot. It worries me a great deal. We'll take the Golden Bears plus the 10.5 against McCain's. Texas Tech and Arizona, the final game of the night. It'll be the Arizona Wildcats minus 6, the total 64. Arizona taking some public money here. Both these teams off nice wins last week, maybe unexpected wins. I'd lean Tech. If I can get a touchdown on the road against Arizona, I'd probably take it. Now, Arizona's not bad, but they upset Utah. They're going to be starting to think they're good again. I'm not sure they are. Utah, poor loss for them. Very, very bad loss for Utah. Hurt us badly in our season-long bets, perhaps. But nonetheless, we'll look to get back in the win column. I lean Texas Tech Red Raiders in that one. Let's recap a few of our season-long bets so those of you who are just listening to us on the Watchdog for the first time can understand what we do here on this show. We give out future bets. We try to give out wagers that are not big favorites. We don't give out anything more than in the dollar range, minus one whatever. We're not going to give you minus $8 favorites. We're not going to give you minus $5 favorites. Just not going to do that. It's just a losing way. You shouldn't be betting those. You shouldn't be doing money line parlays with teams minus 800 and 600 and minus 1250, and it doesn't help your bet at all. All it does is give you one opportunity to lose, and you lose everything, and it's just not worth it, and you'll never recoup that when you're laying that kind of juice. So we give out preseason best bets, whether it's win totals, the win divisions, the win conferences, whatever. We do that every single year on Bettor's Last Stand, and our numbers have been fabulous the last 2 years. We're hoping to keep that going again. Here are some of the ones that we gave out earlier on the show as we brought you up to football season. We have Alabama over their win total of 9.5, they're 4-0. We have LSU under. Now, they are 4-1. LSU under 9.5. So that one's a little bit concerning, but nothing that we didn't forecast yet for LSU. No upsets or anything. We expected them to lose to USC, so that was good. And they played just a winnable part of their schedule. Oklahoma over 7. Sooners currently 4-1. We have the Florida Gators under 5. This was our SEC best bet. They are 2-2. And again, I guess you could say one of the games was a little bit of a surprise, so we're a little bit of a bind in that one, but not terrible. Wisconsin over 6.5. They're 2-2. That's a terrible bet. I will be the first to admit, an awful wager. They are terrible, just like they were last year, where we faded them. Rutgers over 5. They are 4-0. We only need 2 more from the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, and we cash our first win total bet of the year in college football. Minnesota over 5. They are 2-3 with a game this week that I think they might be able to upset their way to a 3-3 mark. Indiana over 5. We're already at 5. That was our Big Ten best bet of the year. The Indiana Hoosiers over 5 or 5.5. They are rolling right now. They're 5-0. Expected to win again this week. We could cash that one very, very quickly. These are actually mixed up with pro and college, so bear with me. The Steelers over 8.5. We're off to a 3-1 start. That was our AFC North best bet. Cincinnati under 10.5 and an under adjusted win total of 9.5. We gave you 2 out there. One with a really nice plus price. Bengals, of course, 1-3. Lions over 10.5 to win the NFC North. Lions 3-1, so a good start there. Bears under 9. Last week's game kind of hurt us. Thought they should have been 1-3, but they're 2-2, so we're not in too bad of shape with them at this point. The Bills to win the AFC East and be over 9.5 wins. They are off to a good start at 3-1 in a division that they are clearly the best team in. The New England Patriots over 4.5. That one's a little bit tricky. We got the good win early. They're 1-3. Maybe a win this week gets them to 2-3. That would really, really help us in that over 4.5. The Eagles to win the division, the NFC East. That one could be in trouble. The Eagles are a mess, but maybe the Redskins are the team in that division. It crossed my mind that maybe the Redskins were the team to beat, but it's hard to pick them for the division. Eagles 2-2, of course. Skins over 6.5. They are 3-1, so we're looking good there with that win total. Utah in college football over 9.5. They're 4-1. Should be 5-0. A bad loss after a great win. 4-1. Not impossible that they can get there still, but now it makes it very, very, very important that they don't lose again. That was our college football future best bet of the year here on Bettor's Last Stand. The Utah Utes over 9.5. We also have Utah to make the Big 12 championship, to win the Big 12, and to make the playoff. So we need the Utes to right the ship. Oklahoma State over 8 wins. That one's in trouble big time. 3-2 on the season. They might lose to the Mountaineers this week. Cincinnati over 5.5. Gave a game away against Pitt. Should be 4-1. Instead, they're 3-2, but still alive. University of Miami over 9. They're 5-0. Canes, I think, should get to that mark, but if they lose the Cal this week, everything could go south. North Carolina under 7.5, 3-2 on the season, and it's a bad 3-2. 2 bad losses back-to-back for the Tar Heels. I think they lose again this week. I think that stays under. Pitt under 6. That one's going to be a loser. Pitt already 4-0. I did not realize this quarterback was as good as he is. He gives them a shot to win some games. Duke under 6. They're 5-0, but they might lose out, so maybe we get a push out of that one. Duke, not good, but that one not looking great for us. Wake Forest under 4.5. They're 1-3. That one should be okay. Stanford over 3.5. Oh, Stanford, if they could have pulled out one more win, they'd be. I think they probably should be 3-1. Instead, they're 2-2, but we only got to get to 4, so we're halfway there. Kansas City Chiefs over 11.5. They are 4-0. The Los Angeles Chargers over 8.5. They are 2-2. Denver under 5.5. Last week's game hurt. Expected that one to be a loss. That one could be a little bit difficult for us to pull off. And then we go to Seattle over 7.5 wins in the NFL. They are 3-1, so a good start with that one. The Rams over 6.5, 2-2 for the Rams. That was our NFC West best bet. That one still got some work to do, but I think that they can right the ship. Here's one where we missed every which way, and this was an awful, 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 awful bet. Jacksonville over 8.5. They're 0-4 to win the division. Oh, my. And I even had them to go to the AFC Championship game. Well, that won't be happening. So we can mark that one down as a few losers. So we'll be digging ourselves out of a hole. Our other one's off to a pretty good start. Indianapolis under 8.5. They are 2-2. If the Steelers didn't screw up, it'd be 1-3. The Falcons under 9.5. I feel good about that one. That one's going to be like an 8-win team at best. The Saints under 7.5. I still feel good about that. Despite the 2-0 start, they're now 2-2. They're showing signs that they were just caught people off guard. And then the Panthers over 4.5. I didn't have any idea how bad Bryce Young would be. Dalton comes in, and he may have saved this bet. We might have a shot at getting to 5 with him. They're 1-3 on the season, but have played a lot better in the last 2 games, so give them a shot. So a lot of these bets that we had here in our futures here on Bettor's Last Stand are very, very much alive. So I'd say at least 3/4 of them with looking like they could be winners, or we're off to very good starts. So nonetheless, we hope to bounce back after a positive week again last week. Not as good as we hope, but we're never satisfied here on BLS. So we'll continue to try to get you winners each and every week. You can follow us at BLS_PRP on X. We post all the plays, even the ones that come out early. So if you're getting in the habit of checking them on Wednesday or Thursday, you'll see what we have on there if we have any plays for Thursday Night Football. Or, AFL won't be going on anymore, so we're done with that. But anything early in the week before Friday's release of the podcast, so you can get those plays earlier at BLS_PRP, PineRoomStudios.com, your place to find all the Pine Room shows. You can find each and every one, the full episodes of them, and catch up on all the things going on in the Pine Room Studios. WatchDogNetwork.com is where you want to be for all your high school football action, as well as the Football Friday shows, our regular show on Tuesdays, everything that goes on at the Watchdog you can listen to at WatchDogNetwork.com. Again, thanks to the Brownie House. Visit yesbrownies.com today. Use the promo code PineRoom for 20% off your order. Thanks to Gumby's and Jill's Gentlemen's Club for sponsoring this wonderful Football Fridays, which we've brought to you today via Gumby's and Jill's Gentlemen's Club. And we were out at Gumby's in Moundsville earlier today with another great show down there. Thanks to them. Thanks to the Health Plan, IBEW, all of our wonderful sponsors on the high school football games. And we'll be letting you know who all those folks are as the evening goes on. You'll hear the names called out time and time again as we continue to thank our wonderful sponsors that make these broadcasts possible. And we hope you enjoy the ball games tonight. Wheeling Central again coming your way on WKKX as they host Ron Brown Prep at 7 o'clock. Wheeling Park hosts Morgantown at Wheeling Island Stadium. That one on WVLY with Coach Luke and Nick on the call, your regular crew for Wheeling Park football. And then down at Moundsville at Monarch Stadium, it will be Ross, Coach Heinerman, and Coach Treveri on the call for John Marshall and Warren, Ohio. That'll do it for Bettor's Last Stand, show number 103. Again, follow us, PineRoomStudios.com, at the Pine Room Studios on social media, BLS_PRP on X for all the plays. And we will be back here next week with episode 104. If you're interested in the other things we talked about in the early portion of the program, get over to Pine Room Studios right now. Listen, give us a listen. If you like hockey, gave out some hockey futures, talk some racing, talk some baseball, golf, WNBA, etc. We do that each and every week here on Bettor's Last Stand. That's going to do it for us. Episode 103 in the books. Good luck on your wagering. Enjoy the high school football tonight on the WatchdogNetwork.com, and we will see you here next week on Bettor's Last Stand.